Robert Mitchum finally talks about Marilyn Monroe. Robert Mitchum was born Robert Charlister Mitchum on August 6, 1917 in Bridgeport, Connecticut. He grew up without much money. His early years were really tough. His father died in a railroad accident when Robert was just a little kid, and the family had to struggle to survive. His mother, Anna Harriet Gunderson Mitchum, did her best to take care of her 3 kids during the Great Depression, teaching them to be strong and independent. These traits would later show up in the character Mitchum played on screen. As a young man, Mitchum was restless and liked to break the rules. He left home at 14 and rode trains across the country during the Depression years. This experience changed how he saw the world and made him tougher. He worked lots of different jobs, from digging ditches and boxing to writing poetry for others and even spending a short time on a southern chain gang. After getting arrested for being homeless, these experiences taught him what it was like to live on the edges of society, something that would later help him play anti-heroes, wanderers, and men troubled by their pasts. Mitchum started in acting was almost by accident. In the early 1940s, after marrying Dorothy Spence, the love of his life and his forever partner, he got a job at Lockheed Aircraft in California while also working part-time on local theater shows. His natural charm and deep, strong voice quickly got people's attention. After appearing in small movie roles, Mitchum signed with Ricoh Pictures, where he began building his reputation as a serious actor. His early performances in westerns and war films such as 30 Seconds Over Tokyo 1944 and The Story of I, Joe 1945 got him great reviews, with the latter getting him his first and only Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. By the late 1940s and 1950s, Robert Mitchum had become a leading man known for his easy, cool, and mysterious presence. He became a big star of film noir, acting in classics such as Out of the Past, 1947, Crossfire, 1947, and The Big Steal, 1949. His performances showed theatered, doubtful heroes that defined the style, men who seemed both morally unclear and deeply human. His smooth, deep voice and simple acting style made him stand out in an industry that often liked big dramatic acting. Mitchum didn't really act so much as he just existed on screen, and audiences couldn't take their eyes off him. However, Mitchum's career was not without problems. In 1948, he was arrested for having marijuana, a scandal that could have ended most careers back then. But Mitchum faced it with his usual laid-back attitude, serving a short jail sentence and coming back to Hollywood with even more mystery. Instead of hurting his reputation, the incident only added to his bad boy legend. The rebel who played by his own rules both on and off the screen through the 1950s and 1960 seconds. Mitchum showed himself to be one of the most flexible actors in Hollywood. He acted in many different kinds of films, from westerns like River of No Return, 1954, with Marilyn Monroe, to scary thrillers such as The Night of the Hunter, 1955, in which his creepy portrayal of the murderous preacher Harry Powell remains one of the most frightening performances in movie history. Later in Cape Fear, 1962, he played another scary character, their revenge-seeking ex-prisoner Max Cady, giving one of his most famous roles. Despite his fame, Mitchum never seemed caught up by the glamour of Hollywood. He was known for being humble, having a good sense of humor, and refusing to take the industry too seriously. Co-stars often said that Mitchum could fall asleep between takes and then jive a perfect performance theme and cameras rolled. Underneath his stoic exterior was a man of smarts and sensitivity, deeply devoted to his family and passionate about music. He even recorded 2 albums of his own, one of calypso music and another of country songs, showing off his rich musical voice. As the years went by, Mitchum smoothly moved into character roles, proving that age could not reduce his powerful screen presence. He appeared in praised films such as Ryan's Daughter, 1970, The Friends of Eddie Coyle, 1973, and Farewell My Lovely, 1975, where he played the noir character again with tired brilliance. His final major performances, including his role in Dead Man, 1995, served as perfect tributes to a man who had lived and breathed movies for over 5 decades. In the fall of 1933, when the cool air of autumn blew across Delaware's countryside, a 16-year-old Robert Mitchum met the girl who would become the biggest constant in his life. 14-year-old Dorothy Spence, Their meeting happened at a local swimming hole near Camden, Delaware, a popular hangout spot for neighborhood kids. Mitchum, already a restless and rule-breaking teenager known for his humor and wandering spirit, was right away drawn to Dorothy's quiet smarts and natural charm. She had a wholesome small-town grace that was different from Mitchum's more unpredictable nature. Yet that very difference fascinated him. Dorothy wasn't only pretty, but also steady and thoughtful, qualities that would later serve as an anchor for Mitchum's wild career and larger-than-life personality. Dorothy was a schoolmate of Mitchum's younger brother, John, a connection that made their meeting even more special. In fact, she had briefly dated John before Mitchum came into the picture. A detail that amused and embarrassed the younger brother, but never caused any lasting problems between them. The Mitchum family was close-knit and full of strong personalities, and Dorothy's entry into their circle brought a kind of gentle balance. From the moment Mitchum met her, he was in love. Friends and relatives later remembered that he spoke of Dorothy with an intensity unusual for his age. Despite his dour exterior and carefree attitude, he was already showing signs of deep loyalty and romantic idealism. By the time Mitchum left Delaware for California in 1934, he and Dorothy had formed a serious relationship, one that had grown far beyond a teenage romance. He was chasing opportunity on the West Coast, first working odd jobs and eventually drifting into acting while Dorothy stayed behind to finish school. She was a bright and hard-working student, doing great in her studies before going on to attend college in Philadelphia. Their relationships are of the challenges of distance, uncertainty, and the Great Depression, a sign of their emotional bond and mutual faith. Mitchum wrote to Harrington, his letters filled with humor and longing. Dorothy in turn supported him through her words of encouragement even when his future seemed unstable and his letters hinted at hardship and self-doubt. After several years of long-distance devotion, Robert Mitchum and Dorothy Spence got married on March 16, 1940. The ceremony was a simple affair held not in a big church or courthouse, viewed in the kitchen of a Methodist preacher in Dover, Delaware. There was no fanfare, no fancy clothes, and no Hollywood glamour. Just two young people promising their lives to each other with honesty and hope. The simplicity of that moment showed where they were practical, humble, and quietly committed. Mitchum's later fame would make him an icon of cool distance, but behind that image was a man who had found stability and purpose in his marriage. Shortly after their wedding, Mitchum brought Dorothy west to Los Angeles, a city buzzing with promise and unpredictability. At first, their life there was far from the luxury that would later come with his stardom. Mitchum worked at the Lockheed Aircraft Corporation, a major employer during the pre-war years, doing exhausting manual labor on assembly lines to support his young wife. He worked long shifts and returned home tired, but Dorothy's presence gave him the motivation to keep going. It was during this time that he began trying out acting, first through small theater groups and extra work that eventually led to film roles. In June 1942, Mitchum finally got steady work in Hollywood, the beginning of a career that would make him one of the most lasting figures in American cinema. As Mitchum's star began to rise, his family life with Dorothy remained his emotional foundation. The couple welcomed their first son, James Mitchum, on May 8, 1941. James would grow up to follow in his father's footsteps, building his own acting career and eventually earning fame for his work in films. The second son, Christopher, was born on October 16, 1943, and also became an actor known for his roles in action and adventure films throughout the 1970s. Finally, their daughter Petrine was born on March 3, 1952. Unlike her brothers, she chose a career in the scenes as a writer, creating works that explored her father's complex legacy and the inner world of Hollywood's golden age. For decades, Hollywood insiders and film historians have wondered about the true nature of Robert Mitchum's relationship with Marilyn Monroe. The two famous stars shared the screen in the 1954 film River of No Return, a movie that became legendary not only for its beautiful scenery, but also for the tension, attraction, and complicated dynamics between its two leads. Though Mitchum had remained mostly silent about Monroe for most of his life, preferring to avoid personal questions with his trademark cool indifference, he eventually opened up in rare interviews late in his career. His reflections were both tender and brutally honest, showing a side of Monroe few people ever saw. She was a lost child in a woman's body. Mitchum said, his deep voice carrying the weight of time and memory. People saw the blonde hair, the curves, the walk, but inside she was terrified most of the time. She wanted love, but Hollywood only knew how to sell her. Mitchum's words cut through the glamour that surrounded Monroe, painting a picture of a woman who was both fragile and fiercely determined. He recalled how in the set of River of No Return, Monroe often struggled with the demands of the shoot. The film was physically tough, shot in the cold Canadian wilderness with dangerous river rapids and unpredictable weather. But Mitchum noted that her greatest battles were not with nature, but with her own insecurities. She was scared of being replaced. He continued, every take, every scene, she worried it wasn't good enough. You could see it in her eyes. She needed reassurance all the time, and the studio system didn't give that to her. They treated her like a product, not a person. Mitchum, who was famously self-confident and down-to-earth, developed a protective fondness for Monroe during the shoot. Despite their differences, his rough-edged masculinity versus her delicate sensuality, there was a mutual respect between them. She was late a lot. Sure, Mitchum admitted with a dry grin. But when the camera rolled, no one could take their eyes off her. She had that thing you can fake, something that came from somewhere deep and painful. Behind the scenes, Mitchum was one of the few people who refused to put down Monroe. He didn't talk down to her. He said everyone else treated her like she was them, but she wasn't. She was smart, just damaged. He spoke of how she would sometimes tell him things between takes, talking to him about her struggles with fame, her troubled childhood, and the loneliness that haunted her despite being the most desired woman in the world. She told me once, Mitchum remembered adequately, that being famous felt like being trapped in a glass box. Everyone could see her, but no one could hear her. Their friendship never turned into romance, though the chemistry between them was undeniable. Mitchum respected her too much to take advantage of her vulnerability. I wasn't about to be another guy wowed her, he said. She'd already had enough of that. She needed a friend, not another man with an angle. His tone, even years later, carried a trace of sadness, perhaps for what she went through, or perhaps for what might have been if Monroe had found more people like him in her life. When Monroe died in 1962, Mitchum was deeply affected. He rarely spoke about it publicly, but in private conversations, he expressed his disappointment with Hollywood's cruelty. They killed her, he said bluntly, not with a gun or a knife, but with pressure, with lies, with loneliness. She gave them everything, and they took it all until there was nothing left. His words showed not just grief, but a bitterness toward an industry that destroyed its brightest stars. In his later years, Mitchum often taught about how misunderstood Monroe actually was. She wasn't stupid and she wasn't crazy. He said she was just too gentle for a world that wanted her to be steel. His memories of her weren't the typical tales of scandal or gossip that surrounded Monroe's name. They were rooted in compassion, understanding, and a rare sense of humanity. If people had treated her like a person instead of a fantasy, he said, she might still be here. Through his late honesty, Robert Mitchum revealed the complex human side of Marilyn Monroe, a woman who longed for love and acceptance in an industry built on illusion. His words, decades after her death, surveyed as both tribute and warning. That even the most radiant stars can be destroyed by the very light that made them shine. A lifelong heavy smoker, Mitchum died in his sleep at 500 am on July 1, 1997 at his home in Santa Barbara, California from complications of lung cancer and emphysema. His wife of 57 years, Dorothy, was by his